Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to League Racing TV for round 8 of Season 3 of the TTML Division 3 season. My name is Aidan Carter, otherwise known as Commensus. I'll be taking you through proceedings once again on a Thursday evening, and as always, joining me in the commentary box this evening is TTG Conti. Conti, how are you doing this evening?
Yeah, I'm doing reasonably well. Could be my voice dying off at the end of the stream, but let's see how long I can hold.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. We'll wait and see if your voice can hold out for the entire stream. I mean, it's of all the times to get sick, it has to be at the Singapore Grand Prix, which actually tends to be the longest race of the season. So, and one of the most exciting ones as well. So, I think the world's playing against you a little bit today, but it's going to be a great race, I'm sure, here at Singapore. I think we mentioned a little just before the stream that the Singapore circuit always offers really, really good racing, doesn't it? Maybe not the best track to overtake on, obviously. There's not a lot of overtaking opportunities around this track, but this track, incredibly difficult in terms of tyre strategy, in terms of keeping it clean in penalties, keeping it at the wall as well. So there's a lot of elements to this circuit, isn't there?
Yeah, it's always an eventful race. As you said, barriers everywhere. Have to be careful you don't lose your front wing. It's very high, very difficult to keep your tire temperature low. Tires seem to overheat quite fast here, and a couple of corners you can get penalties. So, and even though there's not a lot of overtaking opportunities, people always seem to find some more opportunities than you would think. So, always an eventful race, and really look forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. Like you said, it's going to be something to behold, I think, this race. And coming into this race, there is a lot to play for throughout the championship. I'd say probably apart from the championship for the top two in this championship have completely run away with things so far this season, haven't they? Utter domination from Old School and F1 AMG, which is a little bit surprising. I think coming into the season, we knew that F1 AMG and Old School were going to be up there at the front of the field. I think we knew that they were probably going to get wins at some point this season, maybe a couple. But I don't think we really expected them to be this far ahead of the rest of the field, did we?
No, yeah. F1 AMG, I expected a lot because we saw that in season 1 as well. He's really fast, and I must say Old School is performing better than I thought. Don't want to take anything away from him because he's a great driver, but he's really performing better than I thought he would. I definitely expect him to win 1 or 2 races, but he's on 180 points. F1 AMG 161, and closest one behind that is on 97 points. Nolan. That's a really, really big gap.
Yeah, basically at this point in the season, Old School nearly has double the points of anyone from third down in this championship, which is absolutely crazy to think about the gap that he's got in just 7 rounds. Remember, this is a shortened season. You'd expect maybe that kind of a gap. A season that was maybe 17 or 18 races long, you could see that gap towards the end of the season, but the fact that that is the gap after only 7 races is absolutely crazy to think as well. And to think as well that we've had 7 races and only 2 winners so far this season, which is a complete contrast to what we had this time last season. I feel like everyone under the sun won a race last season at this point, so a complete contrast to last season in Division 2, and like you say, Old School in Division 3, sorry, and I like to say Old School really has stepped up so far this season. Last season only picking that solitary victory, I believe, at the last round of the season. This time around has already picked up 4 so far and leads the championship. And he's been on the podium on almost every single occasion so far this season. I think the only time Old School hasn't been on the podium was the very first round of the season. So that's how consistent he has been so far. It has been a really strong run from him. We're on board with Nolan. He's going to be the first person to take us through a lap around Singapore. 23 turns ahead of us in qualifying. The most corners of any track in Formula 1 at the moment, at least. I am hearing rumours just running around a little bit on Twitter that the Jeddah circuit could have up to 26 corners on it, so Singapore might lose that threshold of having the most corners in Formula 1. We'll wait and see. But, I mean, this track, it doesn't feel like it has 23 corners, because while it is a relatively long circuit in terms of time, because the track is so narrow and so demanding, the lap seems to go by quite quickly, actually. It's quite enjoyable to watch. So, let's ride on board with Nolan as he heads through the final sector. A very, very cautious and slow outlap, as you would expect around here. Tyre temperature can be very, very crucial, especially on those front tyres. Very, very easy to overheat them. As across the line goes Nolan, and heading into the first sector then. The DRS straight, down the pit straight and in towards turn 1, a couple of stabs at turning into turn 1, through the kink of 2, and then down into turn 3, one of the slower corners on the track, out of the corner through the kink of 4, and up towards turn 5 now. Very easy to run too wide on the exit, tightens up a little bit, and Nolan turning in too early there invalidates on the inside of the corner, and that is our first invalidation in this session. Do suspect that we're going to see a lot of this throughout this session. A lot of drivers are going to struggle. As Nolan heads up Raffles Boulevard, he is continuing on this lap, so we'll just ride with him and see what his banker time would have been as he heads into the second sector. Missing the apex by quite a bit there on the inside of turn 8, up towards turn 9. Opens up a little bit on the exit. Make sure you don't hit that barrier. Nolan does quite nicely. Now into turn 10. Used to be the Singapore Sling. Now just a simple left-handed corner. Not really too difficult. Into this reprofiled middle part of the lap. It used to go on the right-hand side of this bridge. It now runs down the left-hand side of this bridge and up towards the hairpin. A very, very tight hairpin. A bit of a wider entry than it has been in previous years. Heads down this back straight, which is the third of three DRS straights around this track, down towards turn 14 and the start of the final sector. Now this is where it's get technical. A lot of 90-degree corners in quick succession, through the kink and then into the braking zone of turn 16, through 17, Nelson Piquet Jr.'s corner where he crashed famously in 2008. Down into turn 18, underneath the grandstand, and into turn 19, and then 20 and 21 quickly follow afterwards. Very, very tight corners once again. Easy to run in the wall on the outside of turn 21. Nolan just about keeps it at the wall as he heads up towards 22 and 23. And decides to dive into the pit lane, so we followed on board with him for a full lap, and he didn't set the time in the end. So he goes into the pit lane. Got one of the Red Bulls behind him on the lap. That is Funky Chicken. He hasn't invalidated as he comes through 23, crosses the line, and the first lap on the board is a 34.1 from Funky Chicken, which is actually a pretty decent banker time around Singapore. So Funky Chicken at the front of the field looking to continue on his good form. As I say that, he's just beaten by 0.4 of a second by our championship leader.
Yeah, Old School didn't see Old School's time. I was on board the Funky Chicken. Steve does a 35.4 on mediums. Funky Chicken still a lot of time to find in the first sector, as he was really struggling there first and second sector. But yeah, overall as a banker, not bad.
Yeah, not bad time as Steph goes out into P3, the second of the Williams drivers, currently 5th in the championship, 99 points behind his teammate now. So Steph, we would say, I think I've said it so many times already this season, but it's not been the season that Steph would have been hoping for after such a strong debut season last time around. Simply Superman crosses the line, but he invalidated his first run in qualifying, so he's not going to be improving on that 11th place at the moment. Uncle Ben's Rice, I believe, will be next across the line. He hasn't invalidated his time as he comes through the final corner, but he is well off the pace, so I think he's going to be going for a second run on the same set of tyres. Actually, no, he's just backed off going in towards turn 1. We've got, I believe, next will be coming up to line will be F1 AMG, the closest championship rival to Old School, but he has invalidated himself as well. Was a 34.2, wouldn't have been enough to put him on the front row, so not quite a competitive first time, as I believe he moves out the way of Sean, who has just gone and started his first lap on the medium compound tyres as per usual. So we'll see what he can do in this session. First runs are pretty much over and done with then. We've only got one person on two people on a lap at the moment, which is Sean and Kelvin. They're both at the early phases. Only 8 times on the board so far, just proving that it's pretty difficult to get a clean lap in around here.
Yeah, it is, and I must say I was expecting more people to maybe do a run on the medium tires, because the soft tires really die off quickly. I mean, yeah, what are you gonna do on the soft tires? 5-6 laps, something like that?
Yeah, not much more than that, I would say. I think the most you're going to see from these is maybe 7 or 8 from someone probably like Jan, who might run a little bit further. But yeah, if you're pitting lap 6, you're at risk of being undercut by people who pit on lap 5. And obviously with a track with 23 corners on it, the undercut here is massively powerful.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, I expected more people starting on the mediums, or trying to start at the mediums at least. But yeah, who knows? Maybe a couple of guys invalidated their lap to get a banker in, so they know where to focus on if they put on the medium tires.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll wait and see as Kelvin's continuing on his lap in the McLaren. Then he's just behind Sean on the road. So these will be the next 2 to finish lap times. Martin Bell has just started a run in this qualifying session. Look out for him. Trying to improve at the moment. He didn't have the best of runs last time out. Actually had a bit of a horror show. Oh, Kelvin, around 21, has spun the car on the exit of the corner. He's able to keep the car going, so he's not out of the session. But that just proves that it is so difficult to get it right around this circuit. 21 corners nearly nailed. And towards the end of the lap, he spins the car and breaks his front wing. Lucky to get away with that. that, but just proves that this circuit is very difficult. So Marcel will go back towards Martin Bell and see how he's doing at the moment. He's heading into the final sector now, so he's going to be coming through these fast sweeping corners. I think Nelly might be just crossing the line. He does cross the line, goes P4, only 34.5, so good lap from Nelly, who has shown strong pace in qualifying so far this season. So we'll wait and see whether he can sustain that in the race and see if he can get maybe onto that podium position. Here comes Martin Bell then through 21, a little bit of a wobble, but up towards 22 and 23 does look nice and neat so far through the final two corners up towards the line, and it's a 34.6 for Martin Bell, goes P6 just behind Jan and just ahead of Flores. So still only 11 times on the board. Steve up there at the moment in P8 on the mediums. He's just actually done another lap on the medium tyres and has improved by 0.3 of a second to a 35 flat. It's not out of the question considering how big we expect maybe the pace gap to be around this track between the drivers. It's not too out of the question that Steve could remain inside the top 10 maybe on that time.
Yeah, why not? I mean, still only half the grid, or just over half the grid put in their time. So yeah, why not? And I must say, Steve this season on qualifying is, yeah, more than decent. He's actually pretty good at qualifying this season. So yeah, why not? A 35 flat on medium tires isn't that bad.
Yeah, it's a pretty decent time, considering as well that's the third lap on the same set of tyres as well, so who knows what he could do if he puts a set of soft compound tyres on. He's probably a safe bet at this point in the session for a front row start if he can get a good lap in, as Tom crosses the line on his second race. He had his debut last time out, didn't go his way unfortunately. He showed decent pace in the early phases of the race, but it kind of fell off from the first pit stops onwards, so he's up into P7 then. As further up, also again Nolan on his second lap then doesn't invalidate his second run, fastest final sector, the next person into the 33, so we've still only got two people in the 33s, and it's half a tenth of a second covering Old School and Nolan at the front of the field. Again, Nolan at the front of the field in qualifying, and you've got to say in qualifying so far this season, probably Nolan has been the standout driver.
Yeah, he has been. In the race it didn't always go his way, but I think he has most pole positions in Division 3, so yeah, his qualifying pace really strong. But yeah, unfortunately for him, races not always in his strong suit. Some incidents and some DNFs because of that. So yeah, if he can start and put in some good races, we can see him up higher than he is now.
Yeah, this is a track where track position is crucial, so getting a good qualifying here would be very strong for him. As David now coming through the last two corners in that Mercedes, see where he pops himself, only P12 in the end, so I think he might have made a mistake somewhere in that final sector, because his middle sector wasn't actually too bad, so I think somewhere he's made a little bit of an error, maybe around turn 16 and 17. David, another man who has massively improved from last season to this season. He's now running up well inside that battle for third place in the standings. I think he's actually running in 6th place at the moment in the standings coming into this round. He's done a very good job. There's a yellow flag in the middle part, in the final part of the lap. I think that's just one of the McLarens moving out of the way. We've got more people on laps now. Langfell's on a lap. He's 0.3 of a second up in the middle sector, so see what he can do as he heads towards the final part of the lap. Currently P4 in the standings is Langfell. Didn't have the best one in Monza, but has had great runs all the way through the season so far. F1 AMG's just started a lap in the second AlphaTauri as well. Langfell, I think, will be the next person to finish a lap. Actually, I think Kiki will be finishing a lap just in front of him, so we'll see what he can do as he heads through the final two corners, crosses the line, goes P4 on a 34.2, so a good lap from Kiki, and once again for him at the front of the field in qualifying. Around the final corner then comes Langfell, goes up to P10 on a 34.9, so good improvement for Langfell, but you can already see that so far in this session, apart from the top two, there is a pretty big spread throughout the field.
Yeah, there is, and that's the beautiful thing, I think, about this track. You can really see when you're on board with a driver if he is confident or not. I mean, you really need confidence on this track, and if you can be confident on throttle and on braking, late braking, yeah, you can really end up high. And if you're not confident, you can see people lifting off and doing small little corrections mid corner and stuff. And so yeah, it's a beautiful track to see drivers perform.
It definitely is, like you say, a very strong track, and very enjoyable to watch this circuit. Maybe not to drive. I think some drivers will think that this circuit is pretty difficult to drive, but I certainly enjoy watching it. We've got more people out there on the mediums at the moment. Uncle Ben's Rice has made a mistake somewhere on that lap, so he's going to go again on the same set of tyres. Kieran just went 14th on a set of medium compound tyres. Steve has now dropped outside of the top 10 on his set of medium compound tyres, so that's not going to help him. F1 AMG coming up towards the final corner now, but he's quite a way off the pace and has backed off going into the last corner. So F1 AMG, again, a poor poor run in qualifying, only 16th on the grid with a 36.8. Graham's just started a lap, we believe, behind him on the road. Graham, fresh off his first podium so far this season, last time out at Monza. Really, really strong drive from Graham. And as per Graham, we've seen from Graham probably in a lot of different leagues and across League Racing TV. He maybe doesn't have the outright speed, but this man is incredibly clean and incredibly consistent, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. I mean, he isn't the fastest, but he don't get me wrong, he really has speed. So, and as you said, he's really clean. I mean, he came on the podium, I believe, due to other people's penalties last race.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really clean driver. It's just beautiful to watch him go side by side. He's really clean in that way as well. Yeah, great driver.
Yeah, really good driver. Just coming through there, coming towards the Anderson Bridge, had a bit of a loss of traction there on the rear end of the car, so struggling a little bit in the middle part of the lap. We've got more people finishing laps now. Simply Superman on the mediums crosses line, a 34.9 on the mediums. This is a good lap, but just not quite enough to get him inside that top 10, crucially. It would have been great if he was able to do that. Wasn't quite able to get there. I think Sean's currently on a lap 16th on the grid. Comes around the final corner, he crosses the line, goes P13 only with his first run, but he's 1.5 seconds faster on the softs than he was on the medium compound tyres. So I'm looking out for Steve, who's not that far. He's less than 1.5 seconds off pole, so who knows what he could do maybe on a set of softs. He's just starting that next run now in the session, so we'll see what he's able to do. Steph jumped up into P4 a couple of seconds ago as well. That's 2 Williams inside the top 4 now. Martin Bell's coming around the final corner to set a time. Actually, he just dives into the pit lane at the last moment, so he's not going to be continuing with that lap, unfortunately. Graham crossed the line, went P15 only with his time, so that mistake in the middle part of the lap really costing him quite a bit of time. I think Sean that's Funky Chicken, sorry, coming around to start his final run, so he'll be one of the first people to start their final run in the session. Jan also possibly on his final run in the session as well, coming towards the end of the second sector, see where he is able to improve, and he's 2.5 tenths up in the middle part of the lap, so it's a good start to the lap so far. Loses the rear of the car quite a bit there coming out of turn 14, but keeps it pointing in the right direction as he heads into this final sector. A bit of a lock up there into turn 16, gets away with it though, hops over the curb at 17, just about keeps out the wall on the exit of the corner through 18 and 19, trying to square off the corner as much as possible, run towards 20 and 21, again a little bit of a lock up, hops over the curb, make sure you don't hit the outside wall, keeps it nicely within the bounds as he heads up towards the final corner. Jan currently 7th on the grid, looking for an improvement, crosses the line, goes P4, so a good lap time from him, and he goes 200ths of a second clear of Steph and 1500ths of a second behind Funky Chicken. So if it couldn't get any closer in the mid part of this in the front part of this top 10, I mean, that is crazy stuff with Funky Chicken all the way down to Kiki, sped by just over 0.5 tenth of a second. That is really, really close around a track like Singapore with so many corners. Steve currently on a lap in 12th, has invalidated.
Yeah, he was just coming out of the second sector. He was 7 tenths up on his time, so really unfortunate in the second to last corner that he invalidated that.
Yeah, that is a shame that he's been able to, that he's invalidated that time. But 7 tenths up coming into the final sector, and the final sector is the one that has the most densely populated in corners. That bodes well in this final run for Steve if he can get out in time. It's going to be a push for him to get out on the track just before the session ends, as Funky Chicken now crosses the line, running 33.7, so he's now taking provisional pole, 4 tenths of an improvement from him. But Old School is on a lap and is improving himself. He's already run out of ERS on the run to the penultimate corner, heads around the final corner, and he retakes pole position with a great final sector, a 33.5. He's 2 tenths clear once again at the front of the field. One of the McLarens coming around, that's Tom coming to start his final run. Nolan's on a lap at the moment, is slightly up in the middle part of the lap. Around the final corner it comes David to start his final run in qualifying. Where can Nolan put himself in this battle with the front runners? He's only a tenth and a bit behind Funky Chicken. Can he get himself back on the front row around the final corner? No, he can't. He wasn't able to find any time in the final sector. In fact, he lost time, so Nolan is going to have to settle for 3rd place on the grid at the moment. Already loses the car there just through turn 3. That is the end of his session. Then Old School on the front row, on pole position at the moment. Can anyone topple him?
To be honest, I mean, a lot of guys still have to put in their time, but I don't think so. 33.5 is a really, really good lap time. I don't even know how some of these guys just are putting these times in. It's really, really, it's a good time.
It's a really, really strong time. Like you say, really, really good stuff. As Tom's currently on a lap in the middle part of the lap. I think it was slightly up in the first sector. Oh, loses the rear of the car. They're coming onto the bridge. One of the Red Bulls is closing in on the start of their lap. That will be Sean coming around to start his final run in the session. One of the Racing Points as well is coming around to get ready to start their final run. I believe that is going to be, that will be Flores that's coming around to start his final run. Tom will be the first person, I believe, to finish his final run in qualifying then. So we'll see what he can do as he heads in towards the final part of the lap underneath the grandstand. Funky Chicken has retired from the session then in the pit lane. Here comes Tom then up to the final few corners in the lap through 21, hops over the curb nicely, well away from the wall on the outside, doesn't use all the road. A lot of people running out of ERS well before they get to turn 22. Across the line goes Tom, and he goes up to P7 on 34.4, found 3/10 of a second in the end, so a good improvement for him. David next across the line, I believe that was David that crossed the line, it wasn't, he goes P13 only, so wasn't able to find much time. Martin Bell starts his final run in qualifying. Have to wait and see if Steve's going to make it to the line in time. I don't think Steve's going to make it. It's going to be right on the bubble. He's really pushed on this outlap to try and get this in. I don't think Steve's going to make it.
Oh, it's going to be really, really close. 5 seconds, last corner.
2-1. He's going to get it with with 1 second to spare. The problem is that he's used up a lot of tyre life on that formation lap and then immediately invalidates at turn 1. That is such a shame. Steve looking like he could have had such a strong session. That is the session over and done with, though, as further down the field, Graham has crossed the line in P16 only. The top 4 already out of the session, so Steph, the closest person on the track in terms of time that could maybe challenge these guys. Kieran Trapp, currently 18th on the grid, will be next across the line. This will be his first run in this session on softs, so see what he can do as he crosses the line. Goes P11, so he's putting himself in a good spot for this race. P11 is exactly where you want to be if you don't think you can get inside the top 10, or far enough inside the top 10 at least, to really challenge at the front. Flores, currently 16th, will be next across the line. He's 2/10 up in the middle part of the lap, and a 2/10 improvement could put him maybe in position to take that P11 spot. Where can he find time in this final part of the lap? Steph is just behind him on the road as well. We'll see whether he can improve. Here comes Flores and up to turn 22. He just loses his ERS going into the corner, crosses the line, goes P10 with that time, so a great time from Flores. Steph crosses the line, it goes P4 with a 33.9, wasn't quite able to challenge the top 3. Martin Bell will be next across the line as he comes around the final corner and crosses the line. Only P8 for Martin Bell, 34.2 is all he can manage. Next across the line is one of the Alpha Taris, that's F1AMG, who does a 34.1 on the mediums. Wow, what a time from F1AMG. That is absolutely stunning. Simply Superman crosses the line, only 14th on the grid. Next is one of the Renaults to cross the line. That's Kiki. He backed off at the end of his lap, decided not to improve. Stays P8 on the grid. Next across the line, I don't think we're going to really be seeing anyone apart from Langfell, who has invalidated. So Langfell's out of the session. I think everyone has completed their runs in qualifying. Old School are then on pole position, but the standout in qualifying there, F1AMG on the mediums in 6th place.
Yeah. I mean, I said it at the start of quali. I did expect more people to try and do it on the mediums, but I didn't see this one coming. And doing a 34-1 on medium tires is just incredible.
Really, really strong stuff. So we'll wait and see whether that means that it could pay dividends for him in the race. Obviously, all the soft runners, like we said a little bit earlier on, are going to be pitting much earlier than the medium and possibly the hard runners at the start of this race. So F1MG could be out in the lead by the time we get to lap 6. These medium tyres could have a massive, massive advantage. And that shows as well that those that maybe went out on the medium tyres at the start of the session maybe should have waited for the end of the session, because the track kept ramping up, and we saw that a 35 flat was a good lap time that we saw from Steve on the medium compound tyres. 3-lap old medium tyres at the start of the session. Who knows where Steve maybe could have been if he'd set that time at the end of the session.
Yeah, who knows? But we're never gonna know.
Yeah, exactly. You're never going to know. But here is the full grid then. Old School and Funky Chicken on the front row. Nolan in 3rd. Steph ahead of Jan in 4th and 5th. F1AMG ahead of Nelly, Kiki, Martin Bell and Tom in the top 10. Flores in that P11 spot, but he was half a second off the back of Tom in 10th in the end. Langfeld to Kieran Trapp. Simply Superman, Steve, David, Sean, Graham, Kelvin and Uncle Ben's Rice round off the grid at the moment. Quite a big spread in the field then. 3.2 seconds covers the entire field. That is a big spread here around Singapore, and we could see there the top 10 were all within a second of each other, but from 10th to 11th the gap was half a second, so maybe there is already a split in pace in the field.
Yeah, I think so, but it's not really what we used to see in Division 3. Normally from P1 to P20 it's really, really close, but this is just a track that's high demanding on the car, on the driver. So yeah, who knows, and we've seen it before in previous races in Division 3. There's always something weird happens at the end of the race, so they could be miles away from each other, and final couple of laps, it's close racing again.
Yeah, like you say, anything can happen in these races. Singapore as well always throws up a surprise at some point. So I don't think starting at the front of the field is a guarantee you're on the best strategy here. I think anyone in this field could be on the best strategy. It all depends really on how this race pans out. 31 laps ahead of us then. In terms of time, this is going to be the longest race of the season, even without a safety car. So that's one thing to note as well. Concentration levels might dip towards the end of this race. It's really, really crucial that drivers here in this field keep their wits about them throughout this race, because it is so easy to just slightly lose concentration and you just put it in a wall around the circuit. So many traction zones where you can lose the car, so many braking zones where you can outbrake yourself and hit a wall on the exit of the corner as well. It's one of these tracks really like Monaco where we really see the driver making the difference.
Yeah, we do. You really need a confident driver and just someone who really who can race on the edge, but just nearly not go over it. Because if you go over the edge on this track, you're definitely, well, at least gonna lose your front wing and maybe worse.
Yeah, maybe worse. Unfortunately, Langfeld has left the session. I don't think it's, as Uncle Ben's Rice has also left
Oh,
the session.
Uncle
So
Ben's Rice as well.
hopefully we don't have some sort of lobby glitch here, which I think we might do,
Simply
because Simply
Superman.
Superman has now left the session as well, unfortunately. So it looks like there might be a bit of a problem with the lobby here. A lot of drivers are leaving, so it looks like we could have a delayed start to this race then. Yeah, we've already had 5 drivers leave, so looks like we're going to be getting a fresh lobby set for us here as everyone starts to leave the session, unfortunately. So going to be a bit of a delay to the start of this race then, so a little bit more time for us to think about how this race is going to pan out. This is obviously when the new lobby starts, everyone's going to have to start on the same set of tyres, so we'll just run you through what tyres everyone decided to choose outside of the top 10. Flores, Langfeld, Kieran, Trapp 11th through 13th on the medium tyres, Simply Superman on the hards, mediums for Steve and David in 15th and 16th, Sean, Graham and Kelvin on the hards, and Uncle Ben's right at the back of the field on the medium tyre. So a big split outside the top 10. And if you were outside the top 10, which tyre would you choose to start this race on?
Yeah, I would go for the hard tire as well. No way you can do a medium soft. At least I said that before and someone did it, but yeah, no way you can get a medium to soft. So I would start on the hards as well and just see how long I could stretch those tires and go on the fresh mediums, softs.
Yeah, definitely. That is the best thing that we could really hope for in this race. Maybe trying to extend, go a little bit further, because even with the medium tyres, if you pit early in this race, you're probably still going to come out in a bit of traffic on those medium tyres. So like I say, that's going to be very, very crucial for these drivers if they want to get a bit further into this race, that they have to start on those hard compound tyres. We are officially getting a restart then in this race, so this is not going to be the actual official start to this one. So if anyone is still in the lobby, good opportunity for them to actually get a little bit of practice in, as actually I've just been kicked from the lobby myself as well. So we are going to be getting a full lobby restart, guys. So a little bit of a break in between while the qualifying order gets sorted out for this rerun of the race. And just after qualifying then, I didn't actually ask you before the start of the non-real race, but what's your top 3 prediction going into this one?
Yeah, I think must go for Mark. Sorry, old school. Really, yeah, good qualifying pace. Yeah, I'm really impressed with F1 AMG starting on the time he said on the medium tires, and he's starting in the top 10 on medium tires. So I'll put him up there definitely. And yeah, third one on the podium. You know what? I think Kiki could use some luck, so I'm putting him. I know he's starting way back, but I'm putting him up there on the podium as well.
Possibly, yeah. Well, I think that's a good shout. I think F1 AMG for me though, that strategy has got to be race winner here. Starting on the mediums in 6th place, that is a massive strategy benefit for F1 AMG. So I think I'd probably have to choose him for race victory. I think Old School could pick up the 2nd place here as well. But that's at this point in the championship, all that Old School really needs to do is just pick up seconds if F1 AMG is winning. And that's pretty much what he's been doing all the way through the season so far. So we'll wait and see. P3 though, we'll wait and see. P3 prediction for me in this one. It's going to be difficult, but I think it's going to be someone starting outside the top 10 that does something a little bit different. So, I mean, it's already saw from Steve without that invalidation that he could have been right up there with the raw
Yeah.
speed. So, I think Steve, possibly him, might be a good shout maybe for a podium prediction. Myself, just looking in the chat as well, Mashiro, hello to Mashiro, he's put in his prediction. He's agreed with me with our top two with F1 AMG and Mark in P1 and P2. He's gone for Flores though in P3, so he's gone for something a little bit different, something a little bit more bold, as he said himself, a bit of a bold prediction. But it would be great to see Flores up on the podium, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. And I must say, just out of the top of my head, because we obviously not in the lobby anymore, he got on P11, P10, P11. That's his best qualifying session so far, I believe. So, yeah, why not? It is Singapore. It is an eventful race. Why not? Could be.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, like you said, that is his. I think that is officially his best qualifying result of the season so far. And starting P11 as well is a very crucial spot to start here at Singapore. Obviously, some tracks starting P11 isn't too much of a benefit. Obviously, the alternate strategy does tend to be faster, but starting P11 at some circuits, maybe somewhere like Zandvoort or something like that, is not beneficial because of how crucial track position is. While track position is crucial around this circuit, the amount of tyre wear we get here means that starting P11 could actually be a real benefit, couldn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it could, and it should. I mean, especially with you've got more tracks with high tire degradation, but tire degradation here is just awful. And another thing to think about. I mean, ERS is another thing. It's really hard. I don't know why, but it's really hard to save up your ERS around this track. Um, I believe it's only if you don't use it 1 or 2% a lap. So that's another thing to be careful with. Don't use too much ERS, or yeah, you're just gonna be suffering in the DRS straights where you can't use your ERS as well.
Yeah, very, very difficult. Like you say, I think the reason why we have so many problems really with this circuit and Monaco as well, another circuit where we see ERS deplete so quickly without you really using it. I think the problem is that because there are so many traction zones coming out of slow corners, the ERS is obviously used quite heavily out of those traction zones, and there's not really any long straights and massively heavy braking zones that you can use to really rebuild that ERS bank, which is why it is so easy to waste your ERS around circuits like here or Monaco as well. So that is one of the problems, like you say, that these drivers are going to have to face. And around Singapore, when it comes to overtaking, ERS is going to be very, very crucial, isn't it? Because the straights here just aren't long enough to make a normal DRS overtake.
Yeah, yeah, you really need it. You need it from start to from start of the DRS straight until the end, because it is so short. And even with DRS, you just need that little extra boost at the start of the straight to get past on the end. So yeah, really crucial. And yeah, if you fail to overtake and use up a lot of ERS, it can be deadly for the next just few rounds, few laps after that.
Yeah, it really can be deadly, like you say. So, just getting ready then. Everyone is starting to rejoin the lobby, so we'll hopefully be getting the grid order sorted very, very shortly. We will wait and see, but we'll see what we can do going into this one. I'm very excited to hopefully get this race started. It'd be good to see everyone in this lobby ready for this race. Like you said just earlier on, just running quickly through what the qualifying order was. If you guys have just missed qualifying, we did have a little bit of a lobby glitch, which is why we are here at the moment. We weren't able to get that race underway. So qualifying after that session, then Old School on pole position once again ahead of Funky Chicken on the front row, continuing his boost up the field. So we'll just continue to talk about a few drivers while we have this break and a little bit of a wait time for the start of this race. Just some other drivers throughout this season. Funky Chicken, someone that's went a little bit under the radar when he first joined in Division 3. Obviously didn't join for the very start of the season, but probably I'd say from maybe around 3 onwards, since then Funky Chicken has kind of established himself as probably a top 5 driver.
Yeah, yeah, he just every race he drives and every qualifying he does, he seems to be improving himself. So yeah, just getting better with yeah, not little bits but leaps at a time. So yeah, I think he's a steady top 5 driver, and he should be up there. And if I'm not mistaken, he is near that in the standings as well.
Yeah, quite near there at the moment. Just running through the full standings, because obviously run you through everyone below P3. I think we just kind of got carried away with how well the top 2 were doing. We just kind of spoke about them a bit, but behind the top 2 in the championship, it is Nolan still running in 3rd, Langfell in 4th. The gap between Nolan and Langfell is 14 points, and then from Langfell pretty much down to Well, Hero Jokin in 11th. It's very close. Only 13 points covers 4th all the way down to 11th place. So it is incredibly close still in that midfield battle. It is Langfield that leads the way by 2 points over Steph. And then David runs in 6th. He's level on points with Martin Bell and only 1 point ahead of Steve. Kiki is 9th and Funky Chicken is 10th. So while Funky Chicken may only be 10th in the standings, he's only 12 points off of P4, so a good result here, and Funky Chicken could jump his way from 10th to maybe 4th in the standings in one go.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely possible, and yeah, just behind third, it's like Division 3 last season, really really close. Last season, I think after every race, the top three was different. And yeah, behind P3, it's the same this season. It's really close, and every race it just changes. If you don't finish a race, you could just drop 6 or 7 places in the final standings.
Yeah, you definitely could, like you say, and just actually looking at the championship standings as well, a lot of drivers that have scored podiums, obviously other than F1MG and Old School, a lot of the drivers that have actually scored podiums so far this season aren't inside the top 10. So Hero Jokin scored a podium at the very first round of the season. He's currently 11th. Graham scored a podium last time out. He's 12th. Sean scored a podium at Silverstone. He's 15th in the points. So it just goes to show that from week to week, really, you can either be on the podium or you could be outside the top 10 in points. So being consistent across the board, really, really crucial, isn't it? And we've already seen that drivers like F1 AMG and Old School have been incredibly consistent. And in terms of speed as well, while the races maybe haven't gone his way, Nolan has been consistently fast at almost every round so far this season.
Yeah, yes, and the only thing he really needs is just to polish off the rough ends in the race, and he will be doing great, better than he does now. Because if not for those little mistakes, he would be way closer to Old School than F1 AMG at the moment.
Yeah, he would be a lot closer, like you say, but at the moment he's got a little bit of a buffer back to 4th place in the standings, so hopefully we will be able to see him maybe pick up some sort of win before this season before the season finishes. Of course, we'll wait and see if Nolan can pick that up. It looks like we're getting ready though for the start of this race, so thank you to our lobby host Old School and our pole sitter Old School for setting up the qualifying for us, getting up the qualifying order, so we should be able to get straight into this race and hopefully get underway for the start of the Singapore Grand Prix, and hopefully it will run smoothly this time. Fingers crossed. Got everything crossed that we get this race underway. We'll wait and see. Obviously everyone has to start on the same set of tyres that they qualified on as well, so everyone inside the top 10 apart from F1 AMG will be starting on the soft compound tyres. F1 AMG will be on the mediums. Outside the top 10, we'll wait and see. At the top 11th through 13th were on the medium compound tyres. Simply Superman 14th was on the hards, and then I believe that 15th through 16th were on the mediums, 17th through 19th were on the hards, and last place was on the mediums. So we'll wait and see if that is how everything shakes out in this qualifying session once everyone is up and ready to go. But just coming into this one, I think the last driver we really want to talk about before this formation app comes to an end and we get this race underway is, well, probably Graham after his podium last time out. We spoke a little bit about him a little bit earlier on in the qualifying session, but a podium last time out, a second place finish, a really strong run. Where do you see Graham possibly getting in this championship?
Yeah, well, he's in 12th now. Didn't start from the beginning of the championship. I think he could get a couple more places, especially in races like this, where he can keep it clean, keep his car out of the wall, don't get penalties. So I think he will just gain a few places. But what I'm really curious about is when he starts a championship next season. I hope he does. I hope everybody does who's driving it tonight. Let's see where he can end up there, because I really think he's, as you said, not the outright fastest driver, but he's really good and has good racecraft.
He really does, yeah. And that kind of philosophy to racing is what put Jan really in the championship, wasn't it, last season, where he maybe wasn't the outright fastest compared to the likes of Isotopic, but he really had very, very smart racecraft, and it really put him into play. It hasn't quite translated over to this season, unfortunately, for Jan, who is now down, I believe, in 14th place in the standings, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, he is. So Jan, up from this point last season, was leading the championship. This time around, 14th. It's been a disaster, really, hasn't it, for Jan?
Yeah, it has been. Although I think his qualifying overall this season was better than last season, but it just all fell apart in the race for him. And yeah, we know he's a good driver, but yeah, that's the thing we see a lot this season, and it shows how important it is that you can keep consistent during a season, because you can take a podium, you can take a win, but it doesn't guarantee you high standing in the final standings in the championship.
That is absolutely correct. Yeah, like we said, we've already seen podium sitters who are outside top 10 in the points at the moment. If you're up and down throughout the season, in a season with only 11 races, that's not going to be enough. You've got to be strong throughout the full season to be able to challenge for the title, which is exactly why we have 2 runaways in the championship here coming into this round. We're getting ready then. It seems so far, at least, touch wood, everyone is making it through the formation lap, and it's good to see as well that everyone is starting on the correct compound of tyres. So everyone will be able to get through this race without being disqualified at the end of it, which is great to see. So no one's going to be out of place, unfortunately. So we'll wait. Just having a look in the chat, though, unfortunately, it looks like Nolan may be running with a default setup on, unfortunately. Maybe didn't have time to put his setup on before the start of the race. And around a track like Singapore, that is going to be heartbreaking for Nolan, isn't it? As if anything else couldn't go wrong for him this season, that's just another one he's just ticked off his checklist.
Yeah, I just wanted to say how lucky for the guys in the top 10 that they can start on fresh tires. But yeah, Nolan really unlucky then, because running no setup around this track is, I think he's gonna just drop from the start right to the back, because the setup is really, really important around this track.
It really is as well. Like you say, the base setup has higher tyre pressures as well, and we've already seen that pretty much every track you have to run with the lowest tyre pressures possible to try and stop overheating. So the overheating for Nolan could be quite costly in this race for him, unfortunately, which is sad to see. We'll see, maybe if luck goes his way, something might happen in this race which might put him back into contention a little bit later on. We'll wait and see. But we're getting ready for the start of the Singapore Grand Prix. We're just waiting now for Kelvin and Uncle Ben's race to line up on the back row of the grid. We've got 20 drivers on the grid today. The longest race of the season just got a little bit longer with another formation lap, but we are getting ready to go. Here we go then. Everyone is ready then for the start of the Singapore Grand Prix. Who's going to get the best start off the front row? Is it going to be Old School, our championship leader in the Williams, or can Funky Chicken beat him into turn 1? Let's wait and see. The lights are out fairly quickly and away they go. It looks like a fairly even start at the front of the field. Old School, I think, is going to hold it in towards them. Chickens actually lost the rear of the car at some point at the phase of that race, and oh, F1MG has spun coming out of turn 1, so that great strategy and that great qualifying position has all been undone. In about 200 meters he's spun coming out of turn 1 and he's down to last place. Funky Chicken had a terrible start. He lost the rear of the car initially off the line. Another spin in the background. That's the other AlphaTauri of Langfeld that's now spun. Martin Bell has gone off with him as well, and there's some damage in the midfield, and we've now got a virtual safety car because of that debris flying off. Carnage on the opening lap, and crucially, championship rival F1 AMG was in such a good position, he's almost spun himself out of contention.
Yeah, well, that's Singapore for you. I mean, we say, yeah, he has the best chance being on the medium tires. Yeah, this happens. I mean, I don't know who it was, but in the background at the start, there was also Jen with the Mercedes touched by someone on the start. Was that Funky Chicken or?
I didn't quite see that myself. Actually, I was just caught out by underneath the bridge. By the time they were coming back out underneath the sponsorship banner, Funky Chicken had dropped from 2nd to about 7th place by the time they got to turn 1. So it all kicked off in that 50-meter sprint. We are back underway then after that virtual safety car. Old School leads the way. Nolan up to 2nd place. Jan up to 3rd from 5th on the grid. So it has been an overall good start for Jan, and it looks like he's got away with no damage. That is great to see. Steph currently still runs in 4th. Funky Chicken down to 5th. Tom up to 6th. He's had a good start from 10th on the grid. He's ahead of Nelly and Kiki. Simply Superman from 14th on the grid is now up to 9th on a set of hard compound tyres. That is crucial for Simply Superman in this race. If he can keep good pace in these tyres and hold on as this race goes on, although he is running still with his ERS on. So I'm wondering whether he might have a little bit of a problem where we've seen it so far. Actually, no, he's just turned it off. So Simply Superman doesn't have that glitch where we see drivers running with their ERS on permanently. It looks like he is safe from that. But with that, Simply Superman on the alternate strategy, now running in P9, sorry, on the hard compound tyres. If he can keep decent pace and maybe hold on to the back of Nelly in front of him, Simply Superman could be in an astonishing position by the time we get to the end of this race.
Yeah, he could be. I mean, win a couple of positions on the hard tyres, and it's only a question if he can keep up, because it's the difference in speed is, especially in the traction zones, is horrible first few laps. But after 4 laps, I think his tires are equal to the soft ones in front of him, and if he can keep in that DRS, then he's in the sweet spot.
Yeah, and we can already see here, Funky Chicken's already on a fight back. He's tucked right underneath the rear wing of Steph, trying to get a move done for that P4 on the road. Old School has checked out at the front of the field. Look at the lead he's already got after 2.5 laps of racing. Nolan obviously doesn't have a setup on that car, but that is a massive gap that he's already pulled out in those few laps. Old School here, now with F1 AMG almost out of the picture completely, that's really thrown the cat amongst the pigeons, and Old School has an amazing chance of picking up possibly his 5th win in the season out of 8 races here, unless anyone can stop him further down the field. Still desperately trying to get past that Williams. I wonder whether Steph is another one that's ended up with that with the base setup on, because he has got no speed at the moment. Can't keep up with Jan in front. Has got Funky Chicken crawling all over him. Tom right there as well in the McLaren, having started 10th on the grid. Nelly in 7th, just holding Kiki up. And then it's Simply Superman leading Flores inside the top 10. And already Flores nearly 5 seconds clear of Sean, who runs on the hards in 11th.
That is a big difference. I wonder if something.
Oh, F1 AMG has spun again. He's spun coming out of the final corner, and that's him into the wall when F1 AMG's race is over and done with. I thought maybe he could recover at some point later on, but a spin out of 23, that's him out, and that is a full safety car. So that changes the complexion of this race once again. So in 3 laps, we've had already 2 different types of safety car. F1 AMG completely out of it, and now with that, if Old School can pick up a race victory here, he has a massive chance now in this. He'd already built up a good race leading advantage pretty much over F1 AMG in the championship standings 2 races ago. He could be about to do the same thing again with only 3 races to go after this one. Old School really sitting pretty in the championship now.
Yeah, he does. He already has the points for pole position this race, and that's just an extra. So if he can win this race, it will be great for him. And I was just thinking, if we can keep this up, virtual safety car or safety car every 2 laps, I think Nolan his tires with his base setup will hold on.
Yeah, that is a good shout. If we can get more safety car laps, that saves Nolan at the moment in that P2. By the way, by the time that safety car came out, Old School was already 4.5 seconds up the road. That is a massive gap to pull out in 2.5 laps. That is astonishing time that Old School was setting. No one really near him in terms of pace. Crucially though, before that safety car came out, Funky Chicken has jumped Steph, so that has helped him somewhat, especially now that Nolan is struggling on the tyres and Jan is tucked right underneath the Alfa Romeo. Funky Chicken's right back in it. Tom as well right up there in 6th, Nelly in 7th. Now the soft runners, you would imagine all of the soft runners are going to come in, and they do, apart from Tom. Tom has decided to stay out on the track, so he will now lead this race. For the first time this season, we see Tom leading the way, so he goes into the race lead. Everyone has decided to come in the pit lane, including Simply Superman, interestingly. So Simply Superman, only 2 laps on the hards, is into the pits. Flores has stayed out on his mediums though, and Sean has stayed out on his hards. David and Uncle Ben's Rice go ahead of Old School as well. Old School's going to come out the pit lane in P7 behind Graham. So that is one thing to look out for. Nolan, I think, has been massively held in the pit lane. Yes, he has. Nolan, look how many places Nolan has lost. That is huge. He's fallen from a net P2. He's fallen behind Jan, Funky Chicken, Nelly and Kiki. That is a massive loss for Nolan and Steph as well in the pit lane.
It is, and Simply Superman, because they were double stacking as well.
Yeah.
So, wow. But to be honest, I think I would take a gamble on this, and I would have stayed out, because Graham and Sean are already running on the hards. I don't think they're gonna come in for the next, well,
20, maybe 18 laps.
Yeah. Next 20 laps for sure. So, yeah, you really have to go past them quickly, being Old School and Jan, or you can use them as a defense if you do it right. But yeah, it's a tricky one. I think I would take the gamble, and as we had a virtual safety car and a safety car now, and stay out a little bit longer.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But like we've already seen, it's difficult to overtake around this track as well. So it's not like it's all said and done that Old School's going to start working his way back through the field. And interestingly as well, Old School has gone for the hards. Pretty much everyone else behind him has put a set of mediums on. So Jan, Funky Chicken, Nelly and Kiki, all the drivers behind, there is no doubt they're going to have to pit again in this race. They are not taking those mediums to the end. If they do, I'll be utterly astonished, and we might have to take season off of David from that Bahrain race if someone gets those mediums to the end. Highly unlikely though, so that is something that's going to be noticeable in this race as well. Old School pit again in this race. He could take those hards and should be able to take those hards to the end of the race. By the time it gets to the end, Jan and Funky Chicken are all going to be maybe on a fresh set of medium compound tyres, and fresh sets of tyres around this track can be worth up to 2, maybe 3 seconds a lap.
Yeah, it's really fresh tyres are so much more grippy, and Old School's tyres are really going to be shot at the end of the race. I mean, even though hards can go really long, even around this track, he needs to do, what is it, 27 laps?
Yeah.
26 laps? Let's say 26 laps of racing. It is a lot on the hards, and there's not going to be much rubber left on them.
No, there definitely isn't. One thing that's interesting to note, Simply Superman has pitted again. So he's technically doesn't have to pit now because he's run 2 sets of tyres, but unfortunately for Simply Superman, he's come back out on another set of hards. The hards he's come out on are the hards he started the race on. So they're going to be horrible by the time we get to the end of the race if he's going to continue on with those. I mean, he basically would have been done a full race distance on a set of hard compound tyres because he's only missed 1 lap on those tyres. So that is a bold strategy from Simply Superman. If he can get those to the end, hats off to him. But that is a lot of time that he's going to lose. And I think by the time, if I was Simply Superman, I didn't see really the point in coming in at the end of lap 2. I would have probably just stayed out, and he would have been in second place at this point.
Yeah, you would, and yeah, I think we're gonna see another safety car as well. So could as well wait for that and put on new tires there, with another safety car, because even though all these drivers are really good drivers and our safety cars coming in this lap, I really think it's with the nature of this track, we're going to see another one this race.
Yeah, I think it's very possible as well. And the problem here for the likes of Jan and Funky Chicken is that they're basically on a 2-stop. Well, they are definitely on a 2-stop strategy. All the drivers that are from 6th up only really have to pit once, so they're all in a race now for that second place in this one. So Jan is technically running in a net P7, I would say, at this point in the race. So he's got a lot of ground to make up. He's going to have to try and pass his drivers on track before the pit stops come. Tom, out on the track, decided to stay out on the softs. He's the only one that stayed out on the soft compound tyres, which is a very bold choice from the McLaren driver. He leads the way then for the safety car restart. When does he decide to go? Is he not going to go out of turn 21? We head up towards 22 and 23. When is he going to decide to get this race underway? He gets going now just before 22. Gets a good restart. Loses the rear of the car though through 22. Coming through 23. Just about holds it. But already seeming like he's going to be losing grip on those tyres further back. Graham having a look at Uncle Ben's Rice for a move into turn 1. Isn't quite close enough on the brakes. But Uncle Ben's Rice didn't have a great restart in that Ferrari. Tom leads the way. Flores in second. Sean in third. Sean in a great opportunity now as the lead hard runner. Hasn't yet pitted of course. But still has a great opportunity in this race to maybe pick up a really good result. Further down, Old School hasn't made any progress so far. Nelly looks like the one that might be looking for some progress here. He's on the back of Funky Chicken, looking for a move up towards turn 7 in this race, through the kink of 6, up towards turn 7. Nelly's going to try and get the move done on Funky Chicken down the inside. Old School's past Graham. Funky Chicken runs wide on the exit of turn 7. The penalty for Nolan further back as well. Funky Chicken, a little bit late on the brakes there, trying to hold the inside to Nelly. Nelly's going to have the inside line for turn 9. Funky Chicken's going to get squeezed into the wall here, and all they make contact, and Nelly just moving across on Funky Chicken there. There wasn't enough room for 2. Funky Chicken was still there on the outside. Nelly didn't give him the space, and that is now both of them completely out the running with front wing damage.
Yeah, too bad. It really looked good them battling, but yeah, I think their tires are hooked, and yeah, then it's Singapore as a wall, and it destroys the race. Yeah, really sad to see, but
further back,
yeah,
Jan's been hit from behind. Sorry to jump in there, but Jan has been hit from the behind by Kiki by the looks of things. So Jan has lost even more time in that. He's been running to the back of by that Mercedes. Jan on this restart has been struggling for pace for some reason. He's not been able to keep up with Old School, who's on hards, and Jan's on fresh mediums. So that is very bizarre to see that he's not got the pace so far to keep up with the drivers in front. Kiki looked to try and get a move done into 14 and just plain ran into the back of the Mercedes.
Yeah, and it's a pretty big gap. Old School already got with Graham. It's 1.6 seconds and not even a lap.
That is stunning. And look how quickly he's caught Uncle Ben's Rice as well. On a set of hards as well. This is really strong pace. As Nolan has retired in the pit lane, I think he's fully given up on this race, having not been able to pick a setup before the start of it. So that is him out of the running. Old School, is he looking for a run on Uncle Ben's Rice? It's not going to be close enough, running up Raffles Boulevard as we head in towards turn 7. Further up though, David is having a look at Sean down the inside of 7 as Nelly has retired in the pit lane as well. So that's him out of the question in that racing point. What could have been a good result for him, undone by that incident with Funky Chicken at turn 9. David looking for a move on Sean to try and get past for that third place. Wasn't quite able to do so. Interestingly though, despite their tyres being 7 laps old, Tom's actually not doing too bad at the front of the field. He's pulling away from the rest of the field at the moment.
Yeah, he isn't, but they started on fresh tyres because of the lobby restart, and they haven't really done that much racing on the tyres, as there was a virtual safety car and a safety car. So yeah, these tyres should be good for a couple of laps more, I think.
Yeah, it should be good. And maybe if we can get far enough into this race, if you can maybe get to somewhere like lap 10, it's not out of the question that he could run a set of mediums to the end. It is definitely possible. Whether he's feeling bold enough to do that is another question, but that could really help him in this race if he can do that on a one-stop, because that could put him possibly in a net podium place if he can pull that off, because almost everyone in the field now, apart from Old School really, Old School, Steve, Simply Superman and Funky Chicken at this point now all have to pit again. So Tom's in a very good position here if he can stretch his tyres a bit further. DRS is now enabled, and David looks like he's going to be the first person to really benefit from that. He is tucked right underneath the rear wing of Sean, who just doesn't seem to have a lot of pace at the moment on these hard compound tyres. David tucked right underneath, still can't find a way through at the moment, but he'll get DRS down towards turn 7. That's his best opportunity of getting this move done. Can he get the move? Can he get the run out of turn 5? Is he going to be close enough as further down the field? Kelvin is now spun coming out of turn 3. So that is the McLaren out of the equation. I don't know if he's picked up any damage as a result of that. David on the DRS, then down the inside. Sean not putting up a fight in toward turn 7 into third place. Crucially for him, that could help him in this race if he can get closer to Flores in front of him. Old School's got the move done on Uncle Ben's Rice as well. Jan has also got the move done on Graham as further down. Kieran Trapp's got the move done on Martin Bell. Martin Bell trying to come back at turn 8, but that doesn't quite work. And Simply Superman also got the move done on Langfell. So it's all happening down at turn 7. Lap 8 happens. Turn 7 we have a number of overtakes, a lot of changes for position, but crucially for Old School, he's continuing to pull away from the rest of his competitors at the moment, as someone in front of him has just picked up front wing damage, and that's Sean that's hit the wall.
Oh, that's sad to see, because yeah, he was struggling a bit on those tires, but not because they're old, but because they're just less grippy. But he was doing fairly okay, so him picking up damage is too bad, and it should be easy for Old School overtaking him now, as the cornering speed of Sean is just way more.
Yeah, really
way
struggling.
more bad than Old School's.
Yeah, really struggling for pace here. It's all about whether Sean pits now. If he pits now, he's really in a bad spot. He's not really got any sort of strategy if he pits from here. It's going to be kind of a half-hearted attempt at just changing his front wing, and he's going to stay out. So Sean's just, I think, just going to try and ride this out until he gets to a pit window where he can maybe take a set of the mediums to the end. But Old School immediately down the inside, coming up towards turn 1. Not a contest. Old School up then into 4th place. Uncle Ben's Rice under a little pressure from Jan. Graham is plummeting on his hard compound tyres. Very interesting to see that only Old School at the moment seems to have any sort of pace on these hard compound tyres. He's working his way through nicely. Obviously they are fresher than most of the hard runners in the field, but only by 4 laps, so it's not a massive difference. Old School though, compared to all the other hard runners, is much faster at this point in the race.
Yeah, he is. He's doing really well. Probably had a lot of practice and training. And further up front, Flores has caught Tom now, as he was 1.5 seconds in front. So I really think the selves of Tom have had the best of times, and probably gonna pit this lap or next lap, as his pace is really falling away now.
Yeah, it has kind of plummeted all of a sudden off a cliff, like they said in the Pirelli tyres. You do hit a cliff, and that has happened now for Tom. He's just dropped place almost instantly. And David as well closing in. Old School now up to 4th. He will start closing in, and Sean will start holding the pack up behind with his front wing damage a little bit. Again, Kiki was late on the brakes into turn 8, ran into the back of Uncle Ben's Rice, but this time Kiki's going to go around the outside and towards turn 14. No contest. Kiki's up into 7th place. He's following Jan through at the moment. Steph not too far back as well on his set of medium compound tyres. Steve's working his way through nicely as well. Steve obviously caught up in that incident in the opening lap, had to pit at the end of lap 1 for a set of hard compound tyres. He's actually just working his way through the field with the medium runners at the moment, so he's past Graham. He's on the back of Steph. So while he had a terrible qualifying and a terrible opening lap, Steve utilising the pace he clearly has around this track and is holding on to the medium runners nicely, as Tom has decided to come into the pit lane at the end of lap 9.
Yeah, and I think that's a wise decision as well because his pace really just wasn't there anymore because of the tires. But he's going for the medium tires,
Yeah.
so I don't know what his ideas here. But I think he's gonna have to pit another time. 22 laps on the mediums is, yeah, just to say the least, gonna be pretty difficult.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty difficult, but he's out in a lot of clean air, is Tom. 15 seconds behind his teammate. Now we can just nurse those mediums to the end as further down the field. Graham loses another place this time to his teammate. Jan's up to 4th past Sean, but look at the gap between Old School and Jan already. Nearly 3 seconds, despite the fact that Old School's on a harder compounded tyre. That is great pace from the Williams man and our championship leader, who is looking set at the moment to massively extend his championship lead and possibly pick up a full point total tonight of 31 points. That would be a really, really strong night for him. Steph has passed Uncle Ben's race as well. He's up to 7th. Steve's now trying to work his way past the Ferrari driver and up into 8th. Isn't quite going to be able to get the move done. He might get the move done though here in towards turn 13. He had to think about it, but he decided to back out. Wait for this straight. Uncle Ben's right very deep on the brakes there through 13. Immediately on the ERS is Steve heading up towards 14. He's going to have a look to the inside line. They're both very low on ERS, but Steve not late enough on the brakes. He's not close enough. He can't go for the move. He sticks in 9th place for the time being. Further down the field, Martin Bell in 12th. It is Simply Superman and Kelvin. They're all the people that are running in this queue of the cars at the moment. Tom is the lead driver who is not in that queue at the moment. He's well off the back, but he's got good pace on this opening lap on his medium compound tyres. Has already taken out of his teammate in the middle part of the lap at this point in the race. But what is great to see at this point in the race is the fact that Vloris is our race leader, and at the moment has decent pace. He's holding David and Old School at bay at the moment.
Yeah, he does. First time for us seeing him in P1 in Division 3, probably for himself as well. But having seen the pace of David and Old School, I don't think he's going to hold that for long because these two really want to pass him and just disappear disappear.
Look at
but
David.
I was just thinking about
sorry to jump in there. The straight line speed. David using a lot of ERS and all down the inside. There's a little bit of wheel to wheel contact. That was really unfortunate for David, and he spun the car coming out of turn 7. That is such a shame. It was such minute contact, but it has spun David around and towards the back of this train now. That is him out of real contention in this race as well. What a shame for David. This strategy could have worked well for him, and again he makes contact this time with Steve. I think they both just about get away with it, but David really struggling with those older tyres. Graham and Martin Bell side by side. Martin Bell's going to go around the outside of turn 10 and get the move on Graham, who continues to plummet on his hard tyres. And now Martin Bell's hit the back of David. It's just getting really messy in the middle part of this lap. Simply Superman had to back out of that completely. And further back down the field, Tom is 3 seconds faster than his teammate on this lap alone. So Tom is absolutely flying on his medium compound tyres. Up to the back of this queue of cars are all fighting incredibly hard. Flores leads now over Old School. Jan, though, is really closing in on Old School in front now. Now that he's in some clear air, he's starting to utilise the pace of those medium tyres.
Yeah, he is, and almost in DRS already. So Old School needs to make a move on. But what I wanted to say, and that's what David proved by making contact and spinning. I can remember, I don't know if it was last season or the season before. Everybody went for a one-stop strategy, and one guy went for the two-stop strategy on the soft medium, which was the fastest, but the only disadvantage was he came into traffic and lost his front wing, which destroyed his race, and he would have been first if he was going for the one-stop strategy. So really important. Oh, here goes Old School already.
Yeah, Old School already past Flores then. Dan Ruffles Boulevard into 7, no contest. Old School back into the lead of the race on his hard compound tyres. Now he's just got to stretch those tyres to the end of the race. Jan now tucked right underneath the rear wing. Meanwhile, Tom is flying on his medium compound tyres, a 38.3. Look at the gap between him and Simply Superman. That was 15 seconds 2 laps ago. It's 6 seconds now. These guys battling really hard in the mid-pack of the field as well. All fighting themselves really hard in this queue of cars of all these drivers on mixed strategies. It's only helping Tom because he's flying up the back. Even if he has to pit again, the pace advantage he's got over everyone else in the field at the moment, he could cruise up to the back of this queue of cars and just drive through them like a hot knife through butter.
Yeah, but cruising onto the back of a queue is one thing, though. You have to overtake them as well, and that's the difficult thing, especially with multiple cars in DRS. If you get into that little DRS train on the short straights as they are here, it's just a nightmare to overtake. So, yeah, he's catching them really fast, but I have to see him pass them as well.
Yeah, meanwhile, further up the field, Jan is now on the back of Flores for that second place. Old School already 1.5 seconds clear now, so there's hard tyres really coming into their own. Flores starting to lose pace on his hard tyres. Jan's got a great car in a straight line. I'll tell you one thing, Flores' car in a straight line does look quite slow. That is one thing to note. He's not got a very fast car in a straight line, so it's just making him easy meat at this point in the race for other drivers. As soon as they get to the back of him, it's almost immediate that Jan can get past that racing point. Very odd to see as well. I want to chat with the straights are so short. The pace advantage in a straight line that Jan has over Flores is massive. As here we come through turn 6, and just look at that. Breezes past the racing point up towards turn 7. Good move for Jan. And that bodes well maybe for these drivers that are doing the two-stop strategy, that at least at the moment, if you're not stuck in a queue of cars battling like crazy like they are a bit further down the field, when you get to the back of someone, overtakes around here don't actually look too difficult because DRS looks quite powerful.
Yeah, if it's a one-to-one battle, it is. But if you're the second or third car in DRS, it is going to be difficult overtaking. And I must say, Flores, as you already said, is running probably a really high downforce car because it doesn't have the straight line speed. So yeah, then it's easy. But if it's 4 or 5 cars in DRS, it isn't. And Kiki is gonna probably try it as well on Flores.
He's thinking about it. Wasn't quite up into. He'll stay back for the time being, but not long to go until the pit straight. Meanwhile, Steve is working his way past Uncle Ben's Weiss and up into 8th place. Uncle Ben's Weiss down into 9th. His Ferrari teammates just behind him on the road. Tom has already caught this queue of cars, which is how fast he has caught them in these past laps. Tom flying on his medium compound tyres now, so he's hoping that a lot of these drivers are going to be pitting in these next 2 laps and they'll get out of his way so that he can utilise that pace at the moment. On board with Martin Bell, nearly running into the back of his teammate there, as Kiki has got the move on Flores, who's actually into the pit lane. So as I say, that Flores dives into the pits at the end of lap 13. You would imagine for a set of hard compound tyres to take him to the end of the race. Sean follows him in as well to replace that front wing and probably put on a set of medium compound tyres to go to the end, and into the pit lane as well comes Uncle Ben's Rice. So as I say that for Tom, that's 3 drivers at least out of the way, so he's up to 12th now. He's got a few drivers still in front of him that are still yet to pit, but look at how quickly he's caught them. Can he get past any of them really quickly? He's onto the back of Simply Superman, whose tyres have basically going to try and do a full race distance here. Quite onto the back of Simply Superman coming out of turn 5. I don't think it's quite going to be close enough down this straight, but if a gap opens, Tom at least has the grip here to really make moves sick.
Yeah, it's incredible. He was 12 seconds behind this queue of cars, and it only took him 3 laps, so that's 4 seconds a lap in clean air. Yeah. That just shows how incredibly fast new tires are compared to the older and used tires.
There is a massive difference, especially when you've got a queue like this with drivers battling. The pace difference is massive around here, which is why sometimes that two-stop strategy can work and other times it can play against you. If you can get up to the back of these guys quickly, it can really pay dividends. And just to prove as well how much pace Tom has had, as Tom loved his twitch back there on the outside of Simply Superman, but just doesn't have enough ERS in a straight line to go for it. It's going to look to the inside of turn 14, down the inside of the hard compound tyres. Simply Superman not committed enough on the brakes, though, couldn't go for the move, stays in 12th for the time being, does Tom. But to prove how much pace Tom had on his mediums, he was half a second in front of Flores when he came into the pit lane, which was only 5 laps ago. Is now 15 seconds clear. That is a massive gain for Tom in 5 laps. That is about 3 seconds a lap gained on Flores in those previous laps. So while the pace may have been at least somewhat amplified by the fact that these drivers in front are all battling so hard, at least the raw speed for Tom is great, because that is a massive gain that he's had on Flores.
Yeah, it is, and yeah, it just start doubting myself a bit, contradicting myself now. That sounds promising as well for guys like Jan, Kiki, Steph and Kieran, because they went for the two-stop strategy, while Old School went for the hard tires, they went for the mediums. And if the tire difference is just that big, they're not completely out of it yet.
Yeah, they aren't completely out of it, like you say. As meanwhile, Graham on his hard compound tyres is struggling like mad. Simply Superman gets the move on him, and Tom immediately follows Simply Superman through. So Graham on his hards just hasn't got any pace, which I think at this point doesn't bode well for Old School at the front of the field. The fact that 14 laps old, Graham already seems to be struggling for rear traction That does not bode well for our race leader, whose tyres are only 5 laps younger. As Tom, a real dive there down the inside of Simply Superman. That was too late. I think it's just about got away with no damage, but I think he was getting a bit frustrated behind the Alfa Romeo, who, fair enough, earlier on in the lap towards turn 5 really defended hard against the McLaren. But that was a late dive from Tom and almost a bit of a forceful move. I think maybe just getting frustrated he was being held up.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You really have to keep your composure, especially around a track like this, because just a little touch can push either you or your opponent wide and lose a wing. So really important to stay calm, even if you think you're getting held up, as everyone's getting held up around tracks like this. But I must say, already on the back of Martin Bell now.
Yeah, already immediately onto the back of him, like you say, really, really good pace. I think the pace he's running suggests to me that Tom is going to pit again in this race at some point. When he chooses to pit, though, could be crucial. We've already said the undercut is very powerful. You would imagine he's going to go a lot longer than all the other medium runners, so that could play against him towards the end, maybe, if they all re-undercut him, basically. As further up the field, his McLaren teammate Kelvin looking for a move on David for 7th place on the road. Isn't quite close enough, though, into turn 7. Can't get that move done. Tom looking down the inside of Martin Bell. Had to cut across the inside of turn 7 there, but isn't able to get the move done on the Ferrari man. So stays in P10 for the time being. At the front of the field, Old School continues to lead. The gap is now 3.2 seconds over Jan. I think we're at that transition of pace now between the hards and the mediums, where Old School is now just starting to pull away from the Mercedes man ever so slightly, who's still got a decent enough buffer over Kiki, and those two have dropped Steph considerably in these last 2 laps. He's now 5 seconds back. Kieran Trapp running in 5th at the moment, with Steve running in 6th on his set of hard compound tyres as well. Kelvin again looking for maybe a move on David down towards turn 14, not quite close enough. Tom looking for a move on Martin Bell down towards turn 14, who has front wing damage, actually, Martin Bell, and doesn't have DRS to defend with. Tom then up into 9th place, and you would imagine that when Tom gets to the back of Kelvin's probably not going to put up a fight.
No, I think Team Orders will be there as Kelvin is on hard tires. But yeah, this proves you're right again today. He's just going as a knife through one butter. He overtakes them left, right, and center, and doing a great job, Tom.
Yeah, look at that. Immediately onto the back of his teammate as Steph is the first of our leaders into the pit lane. Martin Bell has followed him into the pits to replace his front wing and get on maybe another set of medium compound tyres in this race. So wait and see how that pans out for these drivers. But now Tom has a clear run at the back of his teammate here. And is his teammate going to let him through? Was Kelvin going to think about getting past David before he has to let his teammate through? Kelvin all over the back of that Mercedes in front. So if he gets a run through 5, and actually Kelvin's got a great run through 5 here. This time around, no DRS for David, of course, in front. Here goes Kelvin down through the inside of turn 6. He's not got a lot of straight line speed compared to David as he heads down towards turn 7. It's going to have to be the later one on the brakes. And again, contact with David at turn 7. And David is spun around for the 2nd time in this race at turn 7. Kelvin up to 6th. Tom up to 7th place. But David there, I think, on the inside, I didn't quite see it with the proper angle, but I think by the looks of it, David trying to brake later than the McLaren around the outside of him, and David simply just locked off and just understeered into the side of him.
Yeah, really unlucky. 2nd time David got touched in a corner. Please, David, if you're listening, keep on. All places get points, and wouldn't be the first time that a late safety car came out in Division 3. So please hold on and try to finish the race.
Yeah, anything can still happen in this race. Like you say, a safety car could bring everyone back into contention in this one. It's not set in stone who is going to win this race, as Tom now immediately onto the back of his teammate Kelvin, who's just picked up another time penalty in this race. Tom, you would imagine, is going to try and go for the move here, maybe down the pit straight on his teammate and get that move done. Kelvin, it's not going to be long actually before Kelvin makes his pit stop, so wouldn't be surprised if we maybe see Kelvin in at the end of this lap. Jan and Kiki interestingly staying out for another lap, as I believe Kieran Trapp is into the pit lane. Yep, Kieran Trapp into the pit, so he's the next medium runner to come in for another set of medium compound tyres. So we'll see where he ends up in the field. Kelvin he's just far enough ahead of his teammate heading towards turn 1, but we've got another DRS zone in short time that these guys are going to come up against. So Tom, you would imagine, going to try and get a move done on Kelvin here and down towards turn 7. If you think about all the people that have pit now, so Tom basically a pit stop ahead now of the likes of Sean and Uncle Ben's Rice and Steph really at this point in the race, and Langfell. Steph has dropped massively. Tom here, if he can maybe make these medium tyres last, it's not out of the question that he could make these tyres last. Tom possibly here could be staring at maybe a podium finish.
Yeah, if he can get his tyres to the end, because he has been really aggressive on his tyres and battling a lot to get the overtakes done. So if he can take these tires to the end, yeah, he has possibly ends up on the podium, but that's a big if.
Yeah, it is a big if. If a late safety car comes out now, then that could play beautifully into Tom's hands if he can get that wait and see. The problem is that his teammate's right in front of him, so he's probably going to wait till his teammate pits and then a safety car can come out, and that would help Tom in this race. Coming up to lap 19, you would expect Jan and Kiki would be the next people to come into the pit lane for another set of medium compound tyres, and Jan is heading into the pit lane, and I believe Kiki's following him in, so they're both in on the same lap. They'll then promote Steve up into second place in this race, who started this race in 15th, so bit of a topsy-turvy race so far. Our pole setter still leads, but the second place man in this race now started 15th on the grid, so a bit of a topsy-turvy race it definitely has been. Steve then up into second place, see if he can hold on to that as the race goes on. You would imagine Steve is going to try and get to the end of the race. Kelvin also into the pit lane, so Tom now up into third place on his medium tyres, and Simply Superman follows him close behind, and Simply Superman will also be trying to go to the end on his hard compound tyres, so we'll wait and see what they can do. Jan's going to come out of the pit lane behind his teammate just about, so you would imagine when Jan gets to the back of his teammate, David is not going to put up a fight, and Jan can get up into 5th place quite comfortably. So Jan here, great opportunity of working his way back to probably quite easily into 2nd place, I would say.
Yeah, I would say so as well. Fresh tires, not that far off, not as far off Tom. So yeah, why not? And the only thing he has to take in consideration is Steve, actually.
Yeah. The problem for Steve, though, unfortunately, is that Steve does have time penalties. I think it is only the one. It is only the one penalty, but that obviously will not play into his hands. Now we just got to see what Jan's pace is like. The gap is 7 seconds between him and Simply Superman. We'll keep an eye on that that same point in the next lap, so the end of the first sector. See what the gap is from 7 seconds and how much it has come down and how much faster Jan is. Kiki as well in a good position to possibly battle his way back to the podium. He's immediately onto the back of David for that 7th place, and look how quickly he's just cruise up to the back of that Mercedes, who's tied to 18 laps old now. Kiki trying to switch back to the inside line, does get that inside line, almost runs it into the wall, but just about gets away with it. I think David trying to hold Kiki up as much as possible to maybe help out his teammate. Had him up a little bit, but Kiki, just on the fresher tyres, it was no contest, and he's up into 6th place.
Yeah, he is, but he got hold up more than 2 seconds, because I'm lying. It was 1.5 seconds between Jan and Kiki, so just a second. Sorry guys, not the sharpest tonight, but I'm doing my best.
I think that illness is just starting to get to you now. It's getting towards the end of the race. It's just starting to kick in. So meanwhile, Funky Chicken now will be the next person to have to go at David. Interestingly for David, he's staying out another lap. His tyres are now 19 laps old. That is a massive amount of time that he's run these tyres on. This will just go to show how slow Tom could be at the end of this race, because look how quickly David has been caught by Funky Chicken. And look at the gap. Kiki has pulled 4 seconds on David already.
Yeah.
As further down the field, Sean has spun coming through turn 1. So I don't know if that is as a result of contact or whether that is just a plain spin, but Sean now spins down into last place and actually has put the car in the wall at turn 3 there. I don't know if he did that on purpose. I don't actually quite tell. That was a very odd incident for Sean to have, but Sean now with a damaged front wing. Very odd incident there for Sean, and he's into the wall again, and he has crashed out, and that's a virtual safety car. So that looks like it's possibly a penalty for Sean, because that to me looked like that was a crash on purpose.
Yeah, and he failed the first time, miserably, I must say. But yeah, probably gonna be looked at by the stewards. And we're just lucky it's only a virtual safety car, because that's why the stewards probably would look at it. It's not really fair to the other drivers, if you're fed up with it, to put the car into the wall.
And this is crucial
then. Coming in.
Yeah, it's coming in. Because of the virtual safety car, obviously, it's slowed down speed. Oh, 5-second speeding penalty. That's crucial for Old School in this race. If it can't get out back in the lead of this race, that could be crucial for our race leader. But it's decided to come in under the virtual safety car when everyone is running slow. He had a massive gap back to Steve in this race, so this could be crucial, especially if he didn't think he'd get those hards to the end. Steve as well has decided to come in, so that has somewhat saved Old School in this race. Tom, I believe, is staying out. He has stayed out. Simply Superman is staying out. Now that's very odd that Simply Superman has decided to stay out in this race. I would imagine that he would probably come in, considering that his tyres are going to be doing 31 laps in this race, so very odd to see Simply Superman staying out. Old School still in the lead. Tom's right behind him on the road, only 0.3 of a second, with a time penalty for Old School. But you would imagine the pace that Old School's already shown and the freshness of his tyres, he'll get that 5 seconds back quite easily.
Yeah, I believe so. His pace was really, really good, and Tom's tyres must be suffering a little bit now, as they're 10 laps all these mediums. He has been pushing on them, so I think Old School will get those 5 seconds back. But nevertheless, driving around with no penalties just feels much safer than driving around with 5 seconds of penalties.
Yeah, especially if you have some sort of incident later on in the race, or if there's a safety car, that really throws the cat amongst the pigeons. And Jan is not that far back from Old School. It's not that big of a gap. I'm actually just going to see. It's 6.5 seconds, so it's not out of the question that Jan could get back in penalty range if Old School maybe makes a mistake or something like that. Steph now past David, whose 20-lap-old medium compact tyres have given up the ghost. He has got absolutely no pace. You can see the layer of graining on the inside of those rear tyres from onboard Steve, who's come out on a fresh set of medium tyres. And look at that, Steve just drives clean around the outside of turn 13. That just goes to show how little grip David has got. The fact that one of the slowest corners on the track, and Steve can just drive clean around the outside of the Mercedes.
Yeah, incredible. I think David's tyres are really near to puncture territory, as it's just a pain in the eye to look at from an onboard camera of how these tyres look.
It is really difficult to see. As look at that, as Jan has got the move done in Simply Superman already. So Jan up to 3rd place. That is good for his race, that he's got that move done quite swiftly. Then Jan back onto the podium, and Kiki not too far behind himself as well. Big gap back to Funky Chicken, who's 8 seconds back, as Vloris is now past David. David finally into the pit lane, but if he's going for a set of soft compound tyres, you've got to say, which he is, he's gone for a set of softs. You've got to say, though, that's not been worth it, because we know the softs are probably going to die out before this race ends, considering we've got 10 laps to go in this race, and he's lost almost a pit stop worth of pace just in these last 5 laps because of how slow he's been.
Yeah, definitely not worth it. I mean, these soft tyres are going to be really fast out of the box, but it just lasts for 3 or 4 laps, and they're not completely done then, but I think that's the maximum of push laps you can get out of them, and after that it's just normal race pace. So definitely not worth losing that much pace on the tyres he was on.
Yeah, really not worth it. Look how far back, 17 seconds behind Uncle Ben's White in last place.
Wow,
So
look at Old School's gap already.
oh wow, that is huge. 7.2 seconds. That is a massive amount of time. Tom hasn't got any front wing damage, so I was maybe expecting if Tom had made a mistake or something. Tom has picked up a penalty, but that is a huge gap. Old School is flying. I'm sure this is going to be a fastest lap of the race. He's used up all of his ERS as well, so what is the time? 37.2.
Yeah.
That is massive. That is second faster than anyone else has managed in this race. That is nuts. That is an amazing lap time from Old School, who now leads the way. I think it's fair to say that Old School probably won't be in this division this time next season, but that is a massive lap time from Old School. Jan then up into second place as well. He passes Tom, who's now starting to struggle on his medium compound tyres. Kiki as well passes Simply Superman. He's up to 4th. Crucially though for Kiki, he's got a time penalty, so he's not going to be able to challenge Jan for that second place as it stands. Funky Chicken running in 6th place. He's got penalty advantage over Steph and Steve behind him. Steve though, how quickly has Steve caught these two on his fresh medium compound tyres, already onto the back, and now Flores is under pressure from Graham. Graham trying to go down the inside of turn 3. Can he get that move done on the racing point? Coming out the corner, he can. So Graham, having struggled so much on the hards earlier on in this race, on the medium so far, has recovered nicely up into 9th place as Funky Chicken now, Steph dives Funky Chicken, and now Steve's going to try and get the pair of them as they run into turn 8. Steph very late on the brakes into turn 8. Steve trying to do the switch back for the outside of turn 9. Couldn't quite get the run on the Williams man. Can he get the run maybe into turn 10? He's got a great run off the corner. Down the inside goes Steve up towards turn 10, but Steph has enough straight line speed to hold on to it. It's further down the field. I think Kieran Trapper's gone into the wall and is retired from the race, having hit the wall on the exit of turn 8. So a bit of a Constantina effect, it seems, at that corner. Kieran's out of the running, unfortunately. He is out of this race. We've only got 15 people left. That has not triggered a safety car, crucially, especially for our race leader. That has somewhat helped him in this race, that no safety car has been triggered through that incident. But crucially now, Steph then up into 6th place, does have the penalty hanging over him, but Steve on his medium tyres is absolutely flying.
Yeah, he has such great pace. I mean, qualifying he made a mistake at the end of his lap, but he was fast there, but in the race as well, really flying. And Steph's tyres aren't that old, so really got great pace. And Kiki just passed Tom because Tom is into the pits.
Wow, that's
interesting. On his 12 lap old mediums, and probably, he doesn't have any wing damage. Gonna go for the softs,
Yeah, I think maybe he's decided that he's not going to get those mediums to the end, which I think might have been a bit of a too late a decision maybe. He's gone for the softs. We'll see where he comes out. He's going to come out behind Graham by the looks of things, and he's probably actually going to come out behind this whole gaggle of cars, which does not play well for Tom at the moment. Yeah, he's going to come out behind his teammate, I think, here in 13th place. I think at this point in the race, it probably would have been worth him staying out and just trying it towards the end, hoping maybe for a safety car, because that has knocked Tom well out of contention in this race. Further up the field, Steve again trying to go for a move on Steph into 7. Not quite close enough. He's going to get a great run off 7, though. He's going to look down the inside of turn 8. He's late on the brakes, backs off the move, but Steph runs a little bit wide. But Steve caught on the curb or the inside, can't get the move done. So Steph holds on to 5th place for the time being, but it's maybe a matter of time before Steve gets this move done. And further down, Graham is catching Funky Chicken at a vast rate of knots for P7.
Yeah, he is on the medium tyres as well. I must say, hard tyres do seem to just fell off quicker than I thought.
Yeah.
Funky Chicken's tyres as well, only 16 laps old. Simply Superman, 22 laps old. Hard tyres and just has no pace anymore.
Yeah, it really has dropped. I mean, Kiki only passed him, like you say, like 2, maybe 3 laps ago, and the gap between Kiki and Super Superman is now 6 seconds, and it's going up by tenths every corner. You can just see there for Super Superman, he's just losing the rear of the car at almost every corner on the circuit. The problem for Super Superman, though, is if he pits now, he comes out behind Uncle Ben's rise. So that drops him from 4th down to 14th, so it's not worth him pitting at this point in the race. As again, Steve trying to go for an unorthodox move here as he heads up towards turn 22. He's got his ERS on through turn 22, trying to get the run through 23 and out towards the first corner, but again he's just not close enough to get that move done. Flores has had a bit of a moment further down. He's dropped to 13th and has damaged his front wing, unfortunately, so he's going to have to come into the pit lane and repair that. Tom then up into 12th, Kelvin up into 11th, Langfeld into the top 10, and Steve, I think, is going to try and get the move done around the outside of 5, but can't get the move done. Tries to switch back on the exit of the corner, has got no ERS in his back pocket, and Steph has very clearly got a faster car in a straight line as he gets ahead. So Steve didn't even get DRS for some reason, and Steph with a faster car in a straight line just pulls clear.
Yeah, Steph really, his cars really, because they don't both.
Steve's hit that.
Oh.
Steve's hit that curb on the outside of turn 8, and it's ricocheted him into the outside wall. Coming up towards turn 9, that's a virtual safety car. But Steve crucially losing his front wing there. That is him completely out of contention now. That is such a shame for Steve. Going to have to replace that front wing, and that puts Funky Chicken up into 6th, Graham up into 7th place when Steve has to come into the pit lane. And that could play nicely for Graham, who still doesn't have a penalty in this race either. So despite struggling on the hard compound tyres, Graham could still be possibly staring at a top 5.
Yeah, and he was doing so good, but his wing is completely off. And I must say, I don't want to jinx it, so I'm touching wood as I'm saying it. My prediction so far is 2 out of 3.
Yeah, at the moment it's working quite nicely. Yeah, Jan's the thorn in the side at the moment for your prediction. I think if you put money on it, then you would have had a good return from that if Jan wasn't there. And Steve, now coming through this final sector, you can see is holding Graham up, and it's actually let Graham through. So good sportsmanship there from Steve. He lets Graham through, doesn't hold the Haas up any more than he needs to. As further down, Tom's having to look down the inside of turn 17 for a move on Langfell. Can't get the move done into turn 11. Kelvin has sped under the safety car, so he's going to have to come in to serve a drive-through penalty in this race. Steve's into the pit lane. I think Langfell may have also sped in the pit lane, so he's dived into the pit lane at the last moment. Kelvin has sped into the pit lane as well. He's out of the race completely, so Kelvin's decided to retire from this one. He's now out of it. Tom then up into 9th place on his soft compound tyres, and he's got Martin Belt in front of him on the road 4 seconds further up. So still a lot of things to play for left in this race. Old School leads now by 11.3 seconds. What a gap he's got. Kiki has caught Jan, but still Kiki has a penalty hanging over his head, so if Jan can keep it clean, Jan looking for his best result of the season so far. Still yet to pick up a podium is Jan this season, which is remarkable to believe. But every time we come to a street circuit, Jan seems to come alive. So if we can get a full season of street circuits, Jan maybe could be the championship favourite. So he's running in 2nd place at the moment, Kiki running in 3rd. Even with that penalty though, Kiki ahead of Simply Superman, that 3rd is pretty much set in stone for him.
Yeah, it is. It's 14 seconds and rising. So I don't think Kiki's going to be in trouble from cars behind him. But yeah, really curious to see how hard these guys are going to battle, because Kiki seems the faster of the two. But yeah, Jan's not one to pass easy.
Yeah, and Graham meanwhile has got the move done on Funky Chicken. Funky Chicken didn't put up a fight at all. Graham weaving actually to thank Funky Chicken, who I think actually might have just let Graham through. So Graham's up into 6th place now. Without a penalty, he's got 8 seconds to Steph in front, so that is a big gap. But I don't know how many penalties Steph actually has. We'll wait and see if I can find out how many he has got. I think he has not got that many.
3 seconds.
Yeah, only 3 seconds, so it's not going to really... It's going to have to be an amazing end to this race for Graham to really try and pick up. And actually, I think Funky Chicken might have broken his front wing because he's understeering heavily in the last part of the lap. He has actually broken his front wing on the left-hand side, so that is his front wing over and done with. So Funky Chicken here could be starting to lose places now. Martin Bell and Tom, both behind him on the road, do have penalties though, so Funky Chicken can keep enough pace in his tyres and in his car. He might be able to hold on to a 7th place here as Flores now picks up a time penalty, running in 14th. Steph has got the moved on, and Simply Superman as well. So Steph up into 4th place, and Simply Superman, you can see there on the exit of turn 7, has just got no grip whatsoever and is seconds a lap slower now than everyone around him.
Yeah, it's incredible, but his tyres are already 25 laps old, and even for the hards, it's really difficult to nurse his tyres home now. And yeah, I'm not sure, but it's still 4 more laps to go. With his tyres being this blown, maybe Graham has a chance to pick up P5.
I think he definitely does at this point, because already in the middle sector, Graham is 1.2 seconds up. He's already well up on Simply Superman. And you could just see on board with Simply Superman there, just got no rear grip whatsoever. He's 1.7 seconds down on his personal best through the middle sector. We'll see what his lap time is when he crosses the line, but you can see every time he even turns into the corner, he's just got no rear grip, and the car is barely staying in the right direction for him. He's got no pace, and Graham just continues to close that gap down to the Alfa Romeo in front. So I think at this point in the race, it's no question really that Graham is going to catch Simply Superman well before we get to the end of the race, and Graham could be dragging the likes of Martin Bell with him. So a lot of places, look at that, a 44 flat for Simply Superman. That is miles off the pace, considering the fastest lap of the race is in the 37s.
Graham's doing 41, so
yeah,
3 seconds a lap.
Yeah, it's a massive loss of pace. Tom, meanwhile, has got the move done on Funky Chicken. So Tom up into 8th place, recovering nicely on his soft compound tyres now. The softs are starting to are going to start to wear off from this point in, but Martin Bell does have more penalties than him. So if he can keep within 3 seconds, he might be able to capitalise on him, and we might be able to capitalise on Simply Superman, who's just continuing to lose pace. So Tom not out of the question that he could maybe pick up a possible P6 race finish in this race. And Steve sets the fastest lap of the race at 37 flat. So just goes to show how fast soft compound tyres are when you get the fresh set on. That's a stunning lap time from Steve. That is much faster than we've seen from anyone else apart from Old School so far. Speaking of Old School, we haven't mentioned him a lot in this race. He has disappeared at the front of the field, hasn't looked back. It's not been any contest really, has it? At no point in this race has it looked in doubt that Old School was going to win.
No, he tried to make it a bit more eventful by picking up a 5-second time penalty, but even with his 5 seconds, it's just yeah, incredible. It's like all season long, he's just in a class of his own, and yeah, must say, haven't seen a win like this from him. That's a bit new, but 11 seconds, it's yeah, incredible.
Yeah, he has had really strong races so far this season, but a lot of them have been good battles with other people, like you say, especially that Bahrain race where he only won by less than 1/10 of a second. This is utter domination from start to finish. In fact, the top 3 really have all been in a class of their own. If you think about it, Kiki nearly 20 seconds clear now of Steph, who runs to 4th. Meanwhile, Thomas just picked up another penalty, so that possible opportunity of getting past Martin Bell is going to have to do that on the road now instead of on penalty, so he's going to have to try and close in on the Ferrari in front, and that just puts Funky Chicken possibly back into window if he can hold enough pace towards the end of this one. Still a lot of things to play for further down as well. David on his soft compound tyres is onto the back of Uncle Ben's Rice for P10 in this race, so somewhat of a recovery from David, who's had a bit of a nightmare tonight. It's not been at all fun for him. He's struggled with being on the wrong tyres at the wrong point in every part of this race, it seems, so far. So 11th place, a possible 10th is not a bad result for the Mercedes man, and Uncle Ben's Rice has actually just picked up a penalty, so that is pretty much secured David in that 10th place spot as Flores passes Langfell, and Langfell's into the pit lane, I think for possibly the 4th time in this race. So not been a good race for Langfell either, as David down the inside of Uncle Ben's Rice up into 10th place. Uncle Ben's Rice is going to try and re-get the place on the outside in towards turn 8, but I think David, just with the superior tyres, is going to get that move done quite nicely, and he does, and he's up into 10th then. So David up to 10th in this race. One thing to note in the championship standings as well, Old School obviously is going to massively extend his championship lead over F1 AMG, and in that battle for 3rd and 4th in the standings now, it's going to swing the way of Steph here, because Steph is the highest placed person in that battle. He's going to jump up as Graham, yeah, down the inside of Simply Superman. I didn't actually realise he was that close. I didn't realise he'd caught him so quickly, and he's now round the outside of 15 into 16, no contest. Into 5th place goes Graham then, and it looks like that's where Graham's going to finish. So 2 top 5s in a row, and Graham now could be throwing himself in that battle for 3rd place in the standings after just 2 strong races. So we'll wait and see how the rest of the season pans out for him. But with Nolan not finishing and Langfell well down in 14th place, I think Steph here has a great opportunity of throwing himself into possibly 3rd in the standings.
Yeah, he does, and yeah, that's a big thing. Nolan not finishing this race. He looks strong, yeah, almost every race, and yeah, just spilled too much points in the championship battle now, and him not picking up points, and behind him everyone's really close. So not one but multiple people start, yeah, just want to throw him off his P3 mountain and take it from him.
Yeah, the good thing, at least for Nolan, is a lot of the drivers that are in that battle for him haven't had great races themselves. The likes of Steve has not had a strong race at all, down in 12th place at the moment. Funky Chicken's not had a strong race either, currently running in 9th. Martin Bell hasn't been too strong himself either. He's got 2 penalties lying over his head. Simply Superman's too far down, winning the championship at the moment to make anything. Kiki is going to jump a number of places in the championship as well, so look out for him. He could jump up to possibly about P4 or 5 in the standings, having running at the moment, I believe, in P9, just behind his teammate Steve. So it's going to be a good jump for Kiki. It could be Kiki's 2nd podium of the season as well, after a podium in the wet conditions at Silverstone. So that is good for Kiki, and somewhat of momentum starting to build for the Renault driver, which will really help him, as Tom has got the move done on Simply Superman around the outside of turn 14. Tom then up into 7th place, and he needs to build enough of a gap now over Simply Superman to hold that 7th place towards the end, which you would imagine he probably could do in maybe one lap, because Simply Superman
one corner, 1 second.
Yeah, because Simply Superman at this point in the race just hasn't got any speed. I mean, fair enough to Simply Superman for getting these tyres to the end of the race, but it's definitely not been the fastest strategy for the Alfa Romeo driver.
No, I think in the end, for his times, it would have been better if he would have pitted on the mediums somewhere. Because I think that would take him less time than he lost on these hard tires.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he pitted for this mediums under the safety car and then immediately got rid of them, and he's just got a penalty to boot as well. So if it couldn't get really any worse for him, as you can see, he's just losing the rear of the car at almost every corner. Funky Chicken's now within penalty range of Simply Superman. So Funky Chicken, despite a front wing damage, could pick up another place here, and will pick up a place on Tom, who's just picked up his 3rd penalty now. So Funky Chicken's going to gain a couple places back despite having that damage. But we're going to ride with Old School now, who is cruising to the end of this race. He's 2 seconds off his fastest lap in terms of his delta, but that doesn't matter. Old School has utterly dominated this race from start to finish. Qualifying was quite close. It was only 2 tenths between him and Funky Chicken on the front row, but in this race it has been nothing short of a masterclass from Old School. By far, I think you have to agree with me that this has been his best race victory of the season. Old School around the final corner to win the Singapore Grand Prix and massively extend his championship lead over F1 AMG going into round 9 of the season. Old School now with one hand on the trophy after that result. What a result from him. Jan, with his first podium finally of the season, gets a good result. He'll be really pleased with that. And Kiki, his 2nd podium of the season as well for the Renault driver. He's now up in the standings as well, up into the top 5. Steph on his own, 10 seconds clear of Graham, 21 seconds behind the battle for the podium. It's a solid P4 finish for Steph, but once again just in the shadow of his teammate. Crosses the line nearly half a minute behind his teammate in the end in 4th place. Graham is going to come home with a solid P5 finish. Once again another top 5 finish for Graham, and he's thrown himself in that battle for that top 3 spot in the standings. Martin Bell will get 6th place. Tom crosses the line in 7th. Simply Superman has lost so much time that actually Funky Chicken has caught him, and Funky Chicken passes the pair of them on penalties. So Simply Superman in the end losing out to Tom by 26 thousandths of a second. David's going to cross the line in P10. Flores will be next to cross the line in P11. Had a strong start to this race, but fell away with damage in the midpoint, and it's just not really been able to recover since then. P11 though for Flores' best result since the first round of the season. Uncle Ben's Rise will be next to cross the line, and we just wait for Steve and Langfell. Langfell has picked up the fastest lap. Uncle Ben's Rise has no front wing at all, so he comes around the final corner to cross the line without a front wing. Steve crosses the line in 13th. Langfell with the fastest lap of the race will cross the line in 14th place, so good on him for continuing on despite having a torrid race as he comes around the final corner and crashes across the line to boot as well. So a nice end, a fitting end to the race there, I think, for Langfell. 14th in the end. 2 poor results in the row, unfortunately, for the man that was sitting in 4th in the standings going into this race. Graham driver of the day for the most positions gained from qualifying through to the race, and he's definitely a strong candidate for driver of the day today. It was a really good drive from Graham, but no doubting that is probably the most dominant race victory of the season from Old School.
Yeah, it was. Just one thing we haven't seen from him yet. We've seen him qualifying on first position. We've seen him win multiple races this season, but not in the way he did today. And um, yeah, he's just another driver who seems to get better race by race. He was good already, but yeah, such showed such dominance over everyone else.
Yeah, and going into the next round of the season, I believe that is going to be a 50-point lead in the championship for Old School after that race. If there was any race that F1AMG needed to not retire in, it was this one, because F1AMG, after qualifying, looked like possibly the only person that could challenge Old School. F1AMG's race ended pretty much at the end of lap 1, so it was a disaster today for F1AMG, the Division 3 Season 1 champion. Old School now with a 50-point lead. Liz running through the rest of the field. Then Jan and Kiki finish off the podium. Steph in fourth, ahead of Graham in fifth. Martin Bell, Funky Chicken. Tom with his best result of the season so far in eighth place. Simply Superman and David round off the top 10. Flores, Uncle Ben's Rice, Steve and Langfell your finishers. Kelvin, Kieran Trapp, Sean, Nolan, Nelly and F1AMG all retired. It was a race of attrition in the end. A lot of stuff went on in that race. A lot of contact. It was a bit of a messy race in the end. A long, messy race. A lot of drivers losing maybe a bit of concentration. The only driver really didn't lose his concentration throughout that whole race was Old School, dominant from start to finish. And now, you've got to say, with a 50-point lead in the championship, that's possibly championship over for F1AMG.
Yeah, yeah, unless he just bins it twice, Old School. But otherwise, I don't see him losing this championship anymore. We still have 3 races to go, and yeah, 50 points is a lot. I don't see him throwing them away.
Yeah, I don't see him throwing them away as well. We've already seen so far this season that he's been on the podium at every race as Old School, apart from the first round of the season. So he has been, whilst he's been winning races, he's been very fast, but he's also been incredibly consistent as well. He's always in the top of the field. Even when he has a poor qualifying like he did at Silverstone, he still somehow comes through to win the race. So crazy to see, and we still only have 2 winners so far this season, and that's 5 out of 8 now for Old School. So what a turnaround it's been from last season. Last season only that one victory, somewhat outshadowed a little, somewhat maybe didn't quite live up to his expectations, his own expectations into last season, but this season it has been an absolute domination so far from Old School. Really, really great stuff. Now, just gonna obviously have to suggest maybe some more drivers of the day today as well. So, apart from probably the podium sitters, you've got to say the podium sitters are all in their class their own. Graham again for the second week running with a really strong result.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't really remember it until I saw the final standings. That he started in P18 today, and finishing in 5th around this track is just something else. So, yeah, was on the podium last week or the week before, and now P5. Great job, really doing good, and yeah, showing just his racecraft.
Yeah, showing his racecraft, like you're saying. And once again, he's one of those drivers that flies under the radar and then pops up midway through in the midpoint of the top 10 out of nowhere, and you don't pay attention to it, especially considering he had such a poor run on the hard tyres at the start of the race. So another great drive from Graham again today, and that puts him firmly in that battle for 3rd place in the standings now. But that is where we're going to round off the stream today, guys. Thank you so much everyone for tuning in. It was a bit of a longer one today, a little bit of a delay, but I'm pretty sure that race was quite worth it. It was a very intriguing race in the end. So that is round 8 over and done with. Round 9 this time next week at... I can't actually remember what the next round of the championship is. It's completely escaped my mind. I knew it 5 seconds ago. We'll wait and see.
Wasn't
I think
it,
it's Mexico.
Brazil
I think it's
or
Mexico.
anything?
I think actually it's Mexico.
Mexico, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Mexico is next. So another track where strategy plays a massive part. It's a very intriguing race, a lot of overtaking opportunities, so that's going to be a great race to look out for. Obviously tune into Divisions 4 and 5 tomorrow as well. Give Conti a good cheering on if he's feeling well enough to race tomorrow. We'll wait and see, but hopefully he is, and he can maybe capitalise, and we know what the best strategy is now around this track. It's be absolutely dominant. So we'll see if Conti, see if you can pull that off maybe in Division 4 tomorrow. We'll wait and see. Obviously tune into League Racing TV as well the rest of next week. Division 1 is back next Tuesday. EML, Formula 2 and Formula 1 run on Wednesdays at 7 and 8 PM respectively, and we are back this time next Thursday at 8 PM. So from myself and Conti, it is thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.